Hey now, folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media and Duffin Coaching. Welcome to the first episode of Deep Diving with my partner, Chad Levine and John Duffin.
Oh man, it's been too long, my friend. It's been way too long. I'm just excited. New name, same people, same energy. But I feel like you and I have like a really good vibe and purpose this time around, and I think it's going to be awesome. And for me, this is really the first formal content I'm putting out for my coaching business, which I know you've been doing for quite a while now. So thank you. And we believe it's going to be superstar coaching. As at this moment, that's what it's going to be. So
I'm all excited. The superstar. From superstar person to superstar lender to superstar coaching, it's this ascent, and I like every bit of it. You've been a superstar all the way through, and man, yeah, folks, we wanted to, like I said, we wanted to wait until we had something to say, and I'm really excited because we get to keep the inherent theme of what we've done. We get to keep the chemistry of what we're doing. We get to keep the friendship that you get to see on air. And then also what we get to do too is take on new stuff and new topics and what have you. So the whole point. And folks, what I would say is this, where this really took off was when we saw each other. We've been in touch all the way through because there was just no stopping the relationship. But in terms of pulling this together, for me, it was seeing my buddy at a event very recently, and everything just felt like, all right, we got to do this. And Chad Levine has been the architect and the impetus through this all along. So I'm really glad, man, to be deep diving with you.
Yeah, man, I am too. It feels good. It feels like we have the new name. I feel is like a new uniform almost.
Right. Ain't it cool? It's just the nicest thing, man. When you've got that in a sense of purpose. And folks, I will say this, one of the things that you may recognize, listen, you probably, let's hope, you probably remember us from our prior program, Your Motivational Monday. And we loved every bit of it. And there was a format involved. And that format to me was an absolute winner, and that format was literally devised by my man Chad Levine here. So to honor all of you and to honor Chad in regards to what's true and right, our conclusion was to stick with the format in regards to what we're going to get to do, and that terribly excites me. We typically chew on a topic and it matters. It's typically relevant in regards to the business world, the coaching world, and how we can help, and coming from service and contribution mode. We'll deep dive in it for about 2 minutes. We get a follow-up in regards to making it practical and relatable. Obviously, we'll go back and forth a little bit, and then we're going to wrap up with some takeaways and next steps to keep things rolling. And so, did I leave anything out, man?
No, I think you covered it well. It's like getting back into the old living room. It's
right.
Just dusting it back off. So without further ado, you want me to crack into today's topic?
Yeah, please.
All right, so episode 1 of Deep Diving with John Duffin and Chad Levine. Today's topic is momentum. I'm going to let John kind of take us into the more formal part of our episode, and then we can get into further discussion. But the reason behind momentum, it's timely for us because at the recording of this episode, we are only a few days away from our Super Bowl appearance as Philadelphia Eagles fans.
Go Birds, baby.
Oh, go Birds is right, man. The electricity is it's unbelievable. It's amazing. But more importantly, it's one of these things, John, and we'll dive deeper into it, where momentum to me means everything. And again, I'll let you do your thing. I always say he's the scholar and I'm the street. We're gonna go back. But without further ado, what's today's quote, Johnny D?
Listen, I credit you for all of that, including the quote. So the quote happens to be this: emotion is energy in motion. This is from Peter McWilliams. And again, the quote, emotion is energy in motion. And so to me, this is one of the things, as we're talking about the topic of emotion, folks, in future episodes, I'm keeping a loose eye on the time because I don't want to go beyond the 2 minutes, but there'll be timers and stuff, and then you won't have to worry about shutting me up. But in the meantime, what I would say is this. Look, we are still early in the year. We're still relatively early in the first quarter. But you'd be amazed. They talk about quitting days and stuff, of the difference between the ways that people begin and the difficulties in staying, and then the people that in essence are course correcting or taking themselves out of the game. I believe so strongly in emotion that I believe it's paramount to the way that business is done. More so than education, more so than even relationships. It's the emotion in a situation that drives people. And for myself, too, that sense of energy in motion. Nothing kills great intentions like getting derailed somehow, taking yourself out of the game or taking other people out of the game. And so much is coming at us. Mm-hmm. Chad Levine talked about, like, in a great way, that sense of, God, if you're a Philadelphia fan, we've got something really exciting to look forward to in terms of Super Bowl and Philadelphia Eagles and that sort of fun emotion, right? But life circumstances, world circumstances, social media circumstances, family circumstances, whatever you're watching or following politically, whatever circumstances, are all, to me, massive roadblocks in regards to killing momentum. That, to me, is it's the physicality of a situation. It's the mindset of a situation. It's that sense of having and or losing a connection. And the question is, are you going to bounce back? Is there resilience to bounce back? Even better, can you keep going? Because everybody gets knocked around. And listen, it's pick anything that I talked about in terms of possible reasons why you could get knocked back. And my suggestion with all of this is, don't sweat the fact even if you have been knocked back. The key, though, is you can't stop. You literally can't stop. I've been asked a number of times my word for 2025, and that word happens to be precision. And I since added on another podcast, I said, precision is messy. I often can fall prey to, I want to be just so before we record a program, before I, do something. I'm going to suggest you can't, because you'll wait a long time. And hell, the last thing you want to do is take yourself out of a game, take yourself out of a situation. So for me, the reminder, the sense of emotion is energy in motion. What can you do to correct a situation so you simply can keep going? And that's my take on the situation.
That was well put, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
Well, very
you got enough time to wait for me to say something, right?
So here's how I think of momentum.
Right.
And the easiest analogy, in my opinion, is, a roller coaster. In order for you to get over the hump and to get things in motion, right, there's got to be a catalyst, right? There's got to be something. And oftentimes emotion is the fuel that drives the engine. Emotion is the catalyst, right? And if you can find a way to emotionally connect to something, that's what's going to get the engine going, right? So the first step is to get the engine going. You have to get it moving. It's got to get going. But the big thing in general with everything you do is you got to keep it in motion. So even though we are being very, very deep and very metaphorical in many different senses of the words, what we're really saying is get started, right? Find a way to get going. Find a catalyst. Find something that emotionally pushes you to get going. But then you've got to find a way to keep it going. And if you keep things going, oftentimes it's the momentum that brings luck, that brings opportunity. It brings positive thoughts. And when you have these things, more things happen in your favor, right? And I think that's the overall message that we're trying to get here. And that's what momentum is to me. It's how can I find a way to get going, and how can I find a way to keep going? Because if you get little wins, those little wins are going to drive your desire, your hunger, confidence. I can go on and on and on. And all of these things are going to make you want to do more. It's going to make you want to be more positive. And overall, it's going to lead to a greater rate of success, period. That's not scientific. It's anecdotal, but I'm sure John can look up stats, and I'm sure we're right.
And I can. But what I would also say, damn, that's great. But what I would also say is this, look, my buddy and I both have coaching programs. One of the things that I instill, every single thing that I instill comes from one of three places. And the number one source is direct experience. So that's the number one. You can look up theories and all that sort of thing. I use that to make certain I'm not veering off course with something I'm saying. But I typically lead with direct experience, something I've seen, something I've observed, something I've coached, something I've done, for the good or the bad, right? And so for me, I'll give you an example, and I'm laughing. So I have a dear friend of mine. He's 6 years into his business. He is a personal injury attorney, originally based in Philadelphia. He's now in about 7 or 8 states. Business has exploded for him. Exploded. If you live in Philadelphia, you can't get out of the way of the yellow billboards, buses, what have you. So he and I were in Florida about 6 years ago. And I could still remember, it was around New Year's. And New Year's Day, we were there hanging out with a few other people. And of the people that were there, we all had our phones out and were literally putting our phones, and we were doing our classic New Year, New You video, right? Real original. So every single one of us are in a separate area doing our rendition of what we're going to do. So I say that because I think of my friend James, who did all the grunt work and the UGG work and all that sort of thing. And it just took off for him. It just took off. But it wasn't like one of those typical, somebody who just got lucky. Some luck where he's killed himself working for a number of years. And so that momentum in keeping things going, I think of him.
And you know what? Like, to make it more practical, like, I always feel like we should give people tips and advice
100%.
Of ways to do it, right? So for me, when I think of how do I get the train going, right? And we'll break it down into two things. How do we get the train going, and how do we keep the train going?
Yeah.
Right? So for me, it's how do I find that first small win? Because if I get that first small win, then it's going to feed my fuel. It's going to feed my desire. It's going to feed my hunger, right? And the best thing that we can say, John, is in any business or even on the personal level, let's use weight loss or exercise as an example. Very, very common, right? I think the first thing, believe it or not, that people don't realize is getting your butt to the freaking gym, right? I'm serious, and it sounds ridiculous.
Pretty legit.
I think most people think, all right, I want to lose 30 pounds, and I'm going to work out 4 times a week, right? Well, the first thing to do is you got to get there 4 times a week, right?
Yep.
So if you're actually getting there, that's your first victory.
And it's a big one.
It's a big one.
It's a big one, man.
Even if you start with 1 day a week, then 2 days a week, then 3 days a week. I'll never forget last year this happened to me, John. And I reverted back because I went off the rails, as I always do. But
as you often do, not always. As you often do.
There you go. There you go. Right. We pause.
Right.
I remember saying to myself, I got to start doing more cardio. right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate running. John, I absolutely hate it. You like it? I absolutely hate it. But I knew that if I started to walk, right, eventually it would turn into running. Well, guess what? Sure enough, it did. I started to walk 1 minute, then 2 minutes, then 3 minutes. And then as it got easier and easier to walk, I then went to a jog. And then the jog turned to running. Same thing.
Yep.
And that practical advice to me is momentum. You got the train rolling, right? And then you found ways to keep the train rolling. And oftentimes, keeping the train rolling is scaling, it's growing, doing things to challenge yourself to bigger and better things. And eventually, you'll get to that goal. I think where most people fail is they try to get to the goal immediately. They don't have intermediate steps that helps them build up to it.
I think you're so on point. By the way, folks, I've seen Chad and the results of After Effects, who gets to, as a result, treat himself to killer clothes, and you know what I mean, and getting out, you know, and custom fit, and you use those sort of things to propel you too. But what I will also say, I love the way that you say that, and I'll go with the keeping, because it's to me, that's the secret sauce. Is I believe in my heart that if you are taking the approach that if you miss a week, skip a week, you're done, which people do. Most people do. And then just figure, you know what, that's not going to work out. So instead, what I'll do and just create some brand new plan, and then that fails again. I believe there is a line that is drawn somewhere between accountability and giving up. And that, to me, you don't have to overthink this, this is just a matter of, okay, so start this afternoon. It's X o'clock, or start tonight, or just do something. Like you said, these small victories in the beginning, just do something. Like, I think that example is great. For myself, I've got some reasonable goals this year, and I've got some, to me anyway, more grandiose goals. And so some fun stuff.
What's momentum for you, John? I'm curious. So what like mentally from the standpoint of getting motivation and gaining confidence, right? And let's take it to the professional world, because I think exercise is easy, right? It's easy to think about it that way.
For some.
If we take it into the professional world, what are some small victories that you think can fuel your desire to go forward and do something bigger?
Got it. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a practical example that I'm implementing, and in that way, you can choose to use it or not. But for me, it is really important that I deliver value and somebody knows it, right? So, how does somebody know it? Which is, I get a compliment or an engagement somehow. And that, to me, it's not necessarily that I need all of that. It's more the sense that I know I'm delivering it. For instance, my goal in 2025 is I am posting per week a minimum of 14 pieces of content on a minimum of 4 different platforms. And so that's 14 fours is 56. So there's a minimum of 56 pieces that are going up. And I measure, it's fun because look, with social media now, it's like, for the horrible parts of it, there's still a lot of good parts. And one of them is the metrics are really tight and visible, and you can see them. How many people are seeing the post? How many people are engaging? And you just literally can do the math. So for myself, how do I know things are working? I've got more engagement. How do I know that things are working? I can literally count to see how many pieces have gone up. Is it 56? Yes or no? Is it more? Yes or no? Is it less? Yes or no? And if it's less, why? So what the hell's going on? And the momentum part is this. Rather than, oh, that's too much, or that's too hard, or, oh, you know what? It's like, okay, fine. So last week was 43, just making up numbers, right? But that happened. Last week was 43. Okay, got it. What the hell took place? It's only information. Next week is 56. Done. So it is not beating the direct answer. It is understanding what's happening before it's too late.
Mm.
Not wait 13 weeks to see how your quarter's going. Don't be like I've done in my life, be so fearful that you're afraid to look at something, whether it's a bank account, whether it is the number of closed transactions. God damn, look at the information.
And you know what? You just kept that was, it's funny. Through that answer, I pulled so many good things from it, right? And let me tell you what I pulled from it. A couple of things. First and foremost, when you're trying to build momentum and figuring out what fuels motivation, right? Because that's really what it is. It's how you perceive certain things. So if you start to look at different metrics, perhaps you get motivated more than you thought. And here's my example. Okay, it's very, very common. And I always bring it back to real estate because of my present career, right? And I always say to people, how's everything going? And most commonly you'll get, it's not that great. Why? It's not that great because I don't have a lot of leads or I'm not having a lot of sales. Okay. And then I flipped the script on them. I said, I have a question. How many people did you interact with in the past week that you may have either told you were in real estate or have repeat visit people that you haven't spoken to in a while? And they'll say to me, I don't know. I said, well, why not? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, your job is to interact with as many people as you can. That's your job, right? No. You have two jobs: to actually do your job and to tell people you do your job, right?
So the second part I love, and to tell people
you do your job, right? So here's how it works. When the deals come in, your job is to execute it at a high level. I don't care if you're a dentist, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a financial analyst. I can go on and on and on and on and on. When you're called to duty, you execute at a high level. That's number one. That's the most important thing. So no matter who you are, you're going to learn your profession, right? That's always step one. How do I do a loan? How do I sell a car? How do I try a case? How do I perform the surgery? You got to get proficient at it, right? That's step one.
And keep learning.
After that, you want to find more ways to do more of it, right? So you get more experience. The only way that happens is for you to market, right? But what's marketing? Marketing is you finding ways to tell people, hey, this is what I do. Hey, this is what I do. Hey, this is what I do, right? And then finding ways to get them to utilize you for that. So in between you doing the actual job, you're supposed to be telling as many people as you can that you do the job, right? So how do you build momentum and how do you flip the script? Stop focusing on how many times you're doing it and realize the more you tell, the more opportunity you'll get. So if your engagement goes to 50, 60 people a week, as opposed to, I don't know.
Yeah. Seemed good to me.
Change your whole mindset. And that's going to build your momentum, because if this week you told 20 people and next week you told 30 people and next week you told 40 people, by week 4 and you've told 200-300 people, you're going to start to get a phone ringing and they may start to follow you on social. And guess what? They might engage with your content more. So you may have had 100 less followers at the beginning of the month, but I guarantee now you're going to have 100 new followers because you met them somewhere and they started to follow you and they're starting to engage with your content, and you're just repeating it. You saw them on the street. You see them in social media. You saw them at an event. After 4 or 5 times of them seeing you, guess what? They're going to think of you when they need that service.
God almighty. I love that. I was taught also by you just now as a reminder. So thank you, man. But the biggest thing is that doing the job and telling people the job that you do, that I love the way you break that out. So a mistake that I made early on that I've grateful, like, you have to remain teachable. You have to take the information as information, and building momentum and sustaining momentum, learn from it. Don't beat yourself up about it. But here's what I was going to say, which is I believed I came from a profession over 25 years where you did tell people that you do the job. That's what I did. And then I launched the new company, and I put up a ton of social media content. But you know the part I left out?
Actually tell it.
Yeah. So shame on me. How you live and learn, right? And how important if you're doing one of those two, you're not doing your job, because it doesn't matter which one you're leaving out. You're leaving out something critical. And so it is a matter of social media doesn't replace the calls. Social media does not replace showing up at events and hanging out. It doesn't. And so
it's just a piece of the pie. It's just
that's
a
all.
piece of the pie.
That's it.
Right. Yep.
And to me, momentum is, that old analogy where like people are like juggling plates, or not juggling plates, spinning plates on sticks and stuff like that. That's kind of it. And when one drops, you don't take the other sticks and split. You know what I mean?
But you know what a lot of people do? You know what's funny, John? That's the biggest issue. That's where momentum gets lost.
Yep.
Right? Momentum gets lost when you allow one of those things to deflate you, or the opposite. If one's working really well, you're like, oh, I'm good. Oh, I'm good. No problem. And then in our business, in sales, and guess what? I hate to say this, 99.99% of every industry is sales. Every industry. Right?
Of every part.
So, whether you're a professional salesperson or whether you're the person providing the service, but you have a sales person that does it for you, there's an aspect of sales, right? So the bigger message here is, how can you find things in your daily routine that help to fuel that motivation to get you that momentum? That's the bigger thing.
To understand the getting back part to you, or I'll speak for me, may be embarrassing. Oh, I haven't done it in X time, so it might be embarrassing. You might feel weird doing it, or you might feel like all your pals, like my buddy James, oh my God, he's so far ahead. I can't catch up. And this is the death part. So I won't. And that's the part. If you do anything, you can feel any way you want to feel, folks. Any way. But it's the so I won't part that's death. So leave out that part. It's like, okay, that sucks. I don't look good. All right, I haven't been to the gym in a little while. Oh my God, I can't believe sweatpants are tight on me right now. It's like, okay, great. Feel all that. Feel good, whatever. And still show up. Just show up, man. The business side, it's like, all right, so you haven't told people, you haven't sent the DMs, you haven't met people. I've committed personally to the fact that I have to be, for me, out at a minimum of 2 times per week outside with a group of people. And then there's another goal and another metric of how many times I'm outside with a one-on-one specific sales call, right? So that was my everyday all day. We were out. You get a little too comfortable sometimes in regards to the way that business has been done, and nobody sets appointments anymore. Folks, these are momentum killers. So how do you fix it? How do you sustain momentum? Chad, may I please, because I was hoping you would do it, use the curling example, because I've been dying laughing ever since. My man was talking about, what's the sport where you're just like slowly churning on ice? And I had to Google it because I didn't know the answer, but it was curling. Picture curling, folks. Guys that are trying to use what looks like paintbrushes or brooms in order to get something to move. In your mind, that's what you're thinking, motion and momentum and energy. That's what you're thinking it is. And what I'm saying point blank is, it's not. It's not. It might be sloppy. It might be messy. Might not be as precise, or for me, as buttoned up, as it needs to be, right? But it's not like it's that awful that you're just standing there with a brutal day and it's hateful. Go talk to somebody. Go DM somebody. Go literally tell somebody what you do.
And I'm gonna give you a bigger nugget. Okay. Action is usually what takes away the anxiety of inaction.
Always.
Okay.
I mean, always.
It's a huge message. And I'm almost upset I said that now, because that will be another thing. Action takes away the anxiety of inaction.
Always.
And honestly, That is, to me, the biggest thing that I can say, period. Because I would say the most common thing that I'll get, I bet you get this with your clients a lot too, which is they'll say, I don't know what to do. I'm such a mess. I can't do anything. I can't even get up to go to the bathroom and shower. I'm so overwhelmed by so many things. Guess how you get rid of the anxiety of inaction? Taking action.
Take action. Take a shower, for Christ's sake.
Taking action.
Get up, take the shower. Get up.
How do you build momentum?
Right.
You take action, right? And no matter what it is, it can be simple and basic action, but that action leads to more action, which leads to more action, which is really the definition of momentum.
It's perfect, man. I'm so glad you said that. And I'm going to add one more variable, not to what you said, but in terms of ways to track, promoting, like doing the job, telling people you do the job, and making certain that you're aware that you're doing the job. You should be able to know from some metric that you've done it. Measure something. Measure it again. Well, I haven't done anything in a week. Great. Take my friend's advice from Superstar Coaching. Do the action, but note it somehow, because you forget stuff. You forget stuff. I haven't done anything. Are you sure about that? Are you sure? You've done nothing. Nothing. Just sat on the couch, have a shower. Well, I did talk to self. Great. Give yourself the grace and the credit, because momentum, sustaining momentum, you should be able to see it. And then what I'm saying is, chances are great you will feel it, because when you realize, well, wait a minute, I did get to do this, and I did work with so-and-so, and then you're like, oh, right. And how did that work out? Because I'm going to, for another episode too, but a preview, so much of losing momentum is mental. Is mindset and mental. Is mindset's a better choice of words.
I would actually venture to say it's all of it, John.
It's all of it. It's all of it. It's all of it. It's all of it.
It's all of it.
We will do 50 episodes on
it's perception, John. It's perception. Because if your perception of what you're doing in yourself is not giving you the drive, you will not have momentum. So if you flip the script and you start to look at other things to build confidence, then you will get the momentum.
It's exactly right. I would say, as practical, what the hell do you do? You do not need to recreate the wheel to have some sort of a, how many times did I? I've got some of the most successful coaches that I know are working off of handwritten pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Great. It works for them. Do not sit and waste your own time or anyone else's with, well, I haven't built my tracking system yet, or I haven't been able to, do the coding for my AI data. It's like, just write something down. How many people did you talk to today? 1, 2, 70? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Right.
That's the most practical advice. The most practical advice you can give somebody is to write down a journal of what you've done in a day, so that you can sit back and look at what you've done and what you haven't done, because that will fuel you.
It just does. And literally, and I'll add one more thing, which is a high performance coach I work with. His name is Pete Kolash. Optimal intelligence. And no, I'm coming up. The second word's not it, but I'll get it right for the next episode. But I loved when he shared with me that those sorts of trackers are for information. Nobody's getting beaten up. Nobody's getting beaten up. If you use the information to be, I suck, I shouldn't be doing this, I never should have done this, never, that's on you. Really, information is to help you get better, not worse.
And it's perception. It's used to build your own perception. If you start to see you're being productive, you will get more motivated.
You just will.
Period.
You just do. That's the fun part, right? You don't even have to work on that part. That inherently happens, and then you get more excited. It's like, I closed something today. I've got another appointment today. Oh, I get to go and meet so-and-so today. It's great. And to me, there's something very concrete
Mm.
about the sense of using emotion in a way where emotion doesn't fly off the handle or send you in wrong, weird directions. There is a precision to using emotion directly. And to me, that's the parts. If you don't like the way your momentum has gone since you've done your new year, new you, and good on you. If you did, great. Fix it. Just fix it. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to tell on yourself. You don't have to, it's just fix it. Just go fix it. Make yourself feel good, because that will get you back that will get you back to a place where you won't feel like you're curling. You'll feel like you're doing something productive.
And the only my last comment really is that momentum is very custom and tailored to the individual, right? So what gets me motivated and gets me into a rhythm may not necessarily be the same for you. Now, it's easy if you're in a specific job and your job is to do XYZ. And once you hit XYZ, you feel good about yourself, right? It's just that simple. And that's kind of what we're trying to get at, which is if you don't have a structured XYZ, which a lot of people don't in these self-employed side gig economy type worlds, right? You need to create your own XYZ and figure out what the XYZ is so that when you do your XYZ, you can feel good about it. And for God's sake, move on. Like, be happy and move on. Stop beating yourself up.
Yeah, right. That's the fun part of this, brother. I feel like that's going to be one of the funner, I don't think that's a technical term, one of the funner parts of what we're going to get to be able to do here, man. I'm really excited for that. Just a simple reminder, simple, practical tips, takeaways that people could do to feel better about themselves.
Like we said, John, and it's true. Scholar Street.
I love it. Listen, anything else you want to add to this equation in addition to other than Go Birds?
No, all I can say is I'm so excited for this. And man, did we choose the right name for this show.
Yeah, man. We deep dived. I'll get my grammar correct for all that stuff. But damn, it felt good. And that's, to me, the best part. And that feeling good is what helps to get you to do more. And that's why we're here. So, folks, we are thrilled to be back. And, folks, we're also equally thrilled that you showed up for us today with Deep Diving with Chad Levine and John Duffin. Thanks so much for tuning in. We really look forward to the next round and much more to follow. All right? Be good, all. Take care. Bye.
Peace.